welcome into Between the Tackles Training Camp Edition. We are here at Gillette Stadium. I am your host, Michaela Vernava, alongside Doug Kyde and Zach Cox. Guys, it's good to have the gang back together. Can't believe training camp is here already.
It felt like, I don't know if it felt like Christmas morning or Christmas Eve last night, but maybe like Valentine's Day Eve. I was excited.
Christmas.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Football fans, it is the most wonderful time of the year.
Is it nice to get back? Yes.
It feels very nice to have football back in our lives, even though it'll be another, 2 months before we have real, legitimate, actual, meaningful football, but I'll take this for now. I was getting bored on our break, man.
Yeah,
it was nice at first.
You guys
and
had
then
a 4 to 5 week vacation.
5+, I think
5+.
it was.
You were gone. You were gone, and during that time,
MIA.
we need to have a little commemoration of in with football means out with Doug Kyde's super blonde hair.
It was very blonde.
Yeah.
It was first very yellow, and then it was very blonde. Bleached my hair this summer. I might do it again next summer. Maybe it'll become like a yearly thing.
I liked it.
I'll be a dad with blonde hair next year.
I know, baby on the way, but the blonde hair, I had to do a little rest in peace to hashtag vacation, Doug.
It was a DIY bleaching job, and then it was also a DIY dyeing it back brown, and it's not really perfect. There's still some blonde in there, but it's cool. It
We
looks like I had
were
some
just
sun
going
in.
over this. I think it's strawberry. If you guys can all see, you should tweet at all of us and let us know. Is Doug brunette, strawberry blonde? Did you like him better when he had the Bieber blonde, channeling a little Lance Bass?
Yeah.
Tweet us about
Yeah,
that.
please.
And
So
in
if you like
the
the blonde, I'll
meantime,
just bleach a blonde again.
while you
can
guys
always bring
mull
it
it
back.
over, I think
Yeah.
you should.
Yeah.
Let's dive into training camp.
Yes.
Because
Let's do it.
it got underway. We had the running of the Patriots fans out here today. Really big crowd, you guys.
it's crazy. Yeah,
Wow.
Insane.
I think there were people lining up here at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, a full 2 hours before the first practice even started. People are just fiending for some Patriots football. I mean, they had to open up the walkways on the stadium because the bleachers back there couldn't hold all the people that wanted to come watch this practice. It's crazy. I mean, I remember doing that when I was a kid, so I can't blame them, but people just want some football back in their lives.
Insane show of fans out there. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to really look around during our availability. I know you guys were up in the media section. I walked around the field. So many of those 28-3 T-shirts,
Yes.
a lot of that.
Yep.
And so obviously the energy here is good. The players talked about how having all the fans, it really helps them at practice, brings a lot of energy. But as far as, I want to get into the mentality of this team, because Super Bowl hangover, we've seen that from NFL teams in the past. I don't expect that from the Patriots.
No,
Do you guys?
it's never really been an issue for the Patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, they repeated back-to-back in 2003 and 2004. They probably only didn't repeat in 2015 because they had so many injuries on that team. I mean, if they had Sebastian Vollmer and Nate Solder in that game against the Broncos, then they probably would have fared, or if they had been fully healthy in that game, they probably would have fared a little bit better. So no, I'm not really that worried about a Super Bowl hangover, especially since they brought in so many new bodies to this team that didn't go on a long playoff run. So if some of the guys who are a little bit tired from last year are struggling at any point during the season, other new guys can just step up.
Yeah, I think it's actually a good mix that they have right now of the new guys that you talked about and the veteran leadership. Really all of the quote-unquote leaders of this team, all the captains, all the really kind of elder statesmen, they're all back. They've all been through this seemingly every single year. I mean, you have Tom Brady still here, Dante Hightower, Devin McCourty, even now Rob Gronkowski is one of the older guys. He's a captain now. And so these guys are still there, and obviously Bill Belichick's still there. He is not going to let this team be flustered by any of the 19-0 hype. I mean, we were talking to Matthew Slater and Devin McCourty about this yesterday. They were just throwing out all sorts of adjectives. They called it ludicrous, foolish. They used disrespectful a couple of times. They do not want to hear any of this chatter about this team possibly going undefeated before they even play their first regular season game.
Well, that's what, with all the new additions comes that hype that the whole country seems to be thinking they're going to go 19-0, and being able to manage that hype was something that we asked a lot of the players today. My absolute favorite response was Malcolm Mitchell said, "Have you met our coach?" And that was kind of perfect. A perfect way to describe it is how are they managing these expectations. That was something that Julian Edelman talked about. But I really thought that Malcolm Mitchell couldn't have put it better. Have you met our coach?
Yeah, he's not going to let them buy into any of that. And I always think it's kind of funny that, Bill Belichick stands up there at the first meeting, he's calling guys out, he's saying that no one's a starter. And from the outside looking in, as good of a head coach as Bill Belichick is, as respected as he is with all the Super Bowl wins, if I were one of the players in there, I couldn't help but laugh a little bit. Like, Tom Brady's our quarterback. Of course he's a starter. Like, Devin McCourty's the free safety. Of course he's a starter. But they all buy in, and it's because they've been in this system for so long, and the new guys who are coming in have respected the system for so long that they're willing to buy in too. So, I mean, they all think they're going maybe not 0-16, but they certainly aren't buying into the 16-0 hype. But I'll keep feeding it because I think they could go 16-0. I think they could go 19-0.
I don't think it's far-fetched to think that either, but Tom Brady, when you say he's definitely the starter, he's turning 40 next week. Let's get into that.
Yeah, I mean, year after year
I say
after
that
year,
facetiously, too. Please don't tweet at me. And
everyone's
tell
always
me that
expecting him to fall off the cliff, and somehow it never happens. He's not even teetering on the edge. I don't know if he's even miles away from it at this point. So, I mean, today out in practice, for instance, looked better than Jimmy Garoppolo, looked better than Jacoby Brissett. He's still the best quarterback on this team.
Not shocking. No. Not shocking news.
Still the best quarterback on this team, and it's not even particularly close. I mean, we haven't even come close to a point where Brady's performing well, but hey, man, Jimmy Garoppolo's really coming along. I don't know. Maybe he can. Maybe if he falters a little, we're not even close to any of that. Yeah. Tom Brady is unquestionably the best quarterback on this team. Unquestionably the quarterback who's going to lead this team seemingly until he decides he doesn't want to anymore. It's pretty remarkable what he's doing now that he's only, a week away? I think a week from today is his 40th birthday. Usually you don't see many players in any sport, in any position, playing to this level that he's playing to, but showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah.
Well, given his age, though, do you think what should we expect to see from him during camp? Will his routine be tailored at all different from what it was in the past now that, considering the age and trying to prevent that drop-off or prolong it for as long as possible?
Bill Belichick said no this morning, so I think that's you've kind of got to believe him. And I think that as long as a player is on this team, and as long as he's your starting quarterback, you have to manage him as you would any other year. Even if he is turning 40 years old, as soon as you can't manage him that way, then maybe that's when the Patriots would elect to decide to move on or whatever, or if they have to start managing their team a little bit differently. But no, I mean, I think he's in better shape now than he probably was however many years ago. That's what he keeps saying. So as long as he keeps saying those things, as long as Alex Guerrero keeps helping him out in the TB12 Center, I think he should be fine to go as usual.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels kind of echoed those statements yesterday. He really said they don't talk about age at all in the quarterback room, even though Tom Brady is, I believe, 13 years older than Jimmy Garoppolo and 15 years older than Jacoby Brissett. It really doesn't matter. I mean, at this level, if you can compete, if you can play, if you're better than a person, doesn't matter if he's 10 years older than you, 10 years younger than you. If you're the better player, you're going to play, and that's how the way it should be, and that's definitely the way it is here.
Well, what's your guys' takes on Mike Freeman's report about the assistants around the league predicting this drop-off will come soon?
Well, wishful thinking, maybe?
I think it's wishful thinking, and I think it's not an outlandish take. I mean, look what you saw from Brett Favre 10 years ago, wherever that was. He came within one interception from the Super Bowl, and then the next year he was garbage, and then the next year he was out of the league. So you could theoretically see, typically when these drops come for these kind of players, they do come quickly. But, I mean, just with Brady, with obviously his famed preparation and nutrition and workout regimen and all this, he's just put himself in such a good position to not have one of those drop-offs. Obviously it's going to come at some point. He's not going to play football till he's 60, but he's just really shown no signs of it so far.
Yeah, and I mean, and it is a different situation too, because Peyton Manning had a drop-off like that too, but he had the neck injury, and I don't think that anyone could possibly compare Tom Brady and Brett Favre as far as, I don't want to say work ethic, but as far as preparation goes. Yeah. I mean, Brett Favre was out there drinking and carousing, and that's not what Tom Brady's out there doing. He's going to bed at 6:30 p.m. and eating, I don't know, green beans and asparagus. I don't know what he eats.
Avocado
he doesn't
ice
eat
cream,
anything.
no.
Avocado ice cream. So I don't think it's really easy to compare. I think that Brady, I do believe he can play for another, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, because I think if you're comparing Tom Brady to other athletes, you almost have to compare him like a golfer or a pitcher. And look at guys like Randy Johnson, who pitched until he was, 43, knuckleballers pitch until they're 45, whatever it is. You almost have to look at him that way because he's standing back there throwing the ball, and unless he starts taking some massive hits and gets some really severe injuries, I think he can keep doing this based on what he's been doing for the last few years. Nothing's showing a drop-off. I don't think his accuracy is going to waver. Arm strength might dip a little bit, but even with that, I think it already has dipped, and he's overcome that anyway. So I don't know if I'm just, looking at this through rose-colored glasses or something, but I think that he will continue to be good for a number of years.
Yeah, your prediction, that's kind of a long time, 4 or 5 more years. So that being said, what do you expect to see from Jimmy Garoppolo during this camp? Because I know a lot of people are surprised that he's out here with the Patriots and still with the team after this offseason.
Yeah, I think that it's tough to predict. I think that it really does depend on how this season goes. If I am right and Tom Brady is as good as he was last year, then I don't know, they might have to start reconsidering some things with Jimmy Garoppolo because the contract is coming up and they have to decide whether they want to give him $20 million plus as a franchise player or whatever it is. But I will say that Garoppolo did continue to struggle a little bit out there today. He did throw 2 interceptions. I think it was on back-to-back passes. Yeah. And maybe he's just trying something new out there. But Tom Brady's not throwing those interceptions. And that even goes back to what we saw during the spring when Brady wasn't throwing a lot of picks and Garoppolo kind of was. So I think there is still a pretty clear difference between Brady and Garoppolo as far as who's the best quarterback on this team goes.
And then as far as Jacoby Brissett, what will the reps and the sharing of snaps and all of that look like?
I think you'll see Josh McDaniels said yesterday that he's not going to make any changes to how – he said he's going to run it exactly the way he ran it last year, which obviously there were different circumstances with Brady facing the suspension. But I think you're going to see a pretty equal share for the 3 quarterbacks, especially early on in training camp, and then once you get closer to the season, it's going to be definitely first go more heavy to Brady and Garoppolo, then more heavy to Brady at the very end. But, you like we saw last year, and like Bill Belichick mentioned this morning, one play can change no matter how in shape, how on top of his game Tom Brady is. If you get something that happens like in 2008, if someone falls on his leg, there's nothing you can do about that. You can be as pliable as you want, and you're not going to be able to survive a hit like that. And then Jimmy Garoppolo or Jacoby Brissett's going to have to be ready to go. So they need to have all 3 of these guys as prepared as possible for the regular season.
All right, well, now we're going to jump into some analysis as far as a camp outlook. Basically, the Patriots are really good, so I'm just going to go with nothing to talk about. No, just kidding, obviously. There is still much to talk about. So let's start with players who have the most to prove, and Cyrus Jones.
Yes.
What does he have to do during this camp?
Just be better, I guess. Catch some kickoffs and punts. He looked comfortable on punts today. I will say that he did drop a kickoff very early in the practice.
Might have been the very first one in practice.
Got that out of the way.
We are going to get into roster battles position-wise a little later.
Yeah.
But I guess if you see him being able to sort of save himself, turn things around after obviously a terrible rookie campaign last season, do you see him emerging as a reliable return man, or possibly
I
just
think
a
he
depth
might.
corner?
I think he might need to. Because one, that's pretty much the primary reason the Patriots drafted him. He was a talented cornerback in college, but he was a return man first, cornerback second almost. And they really have been pushing that with him since literally the first practice that we watched of him last year. If he can't give you that, if he can't be your number 1 return man, or at the very least your return some kicks, maybe a backup punt returner, he doesn't have much value on this team because he's not, right now he's maybe the 5th or maybe even 6th best cornerback right now with what we've seen from Kenny Moore, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Jonathan Jones has been playing over him as he did at the end of last season. So I think for Cyrus Jones to really secure a spot on the team, he's got to just get his head right, get his return game back on track like it was when he played at Alabama. Because, obviously he's only a second-year player. There's a chance that the Patriots might just keep him around, just thinking that he might take that next step. But if they don't see marked improvement in this training camp and preseason, I feel like he's a guy who's very much in danger of getting cut.
I'll also say it's not only the return issues with him. he's not making plays at cornerback. And I think that that's what you really, if it's not going to happen in the return game, and today, like I said, he did catch some punts out there. He looked a lot more comfortable. But if that's not going to happen, he needs to start making some plays at cornerback because other guys are out there making plays. He's not going to pass Stephon Gilmore or Malcolm Butler on the depth chart. Eric Rowe's out there making plays. Kenny Moore, Jonathan Jones is out there making some plays. So he's got to start to step up defensively as well because that's something where he never really stood out last year either. So one of those areas, and then the Patriots will probably keep around that second-round pick. But if both of those areas he continues to struggle in, then you might start talking about them giving up on that second-round pick after just 1 year.
Knowing what you guys do know of him from last season and then from what you've seen in the spring, OTAs, mini camp, what's your best prediction? Will he be able to do it, whether it's mentality-wise, attitude? Will he be able to turn things around after such a rough start?
It's
I know
tough
it's tough
to say.
to predict.
It is tough to say because he is a little bit different, I'd say, than the rest of his teammates just from talking to him. But that's probably also because he had so many struggles as a rookie. I don't think that you're going to be out there in the locker room being boisterous and loud and outgoing if you're being criticized as much as he was last year. So it's tough to say. I don't think it was a great sign that we saw him come out in the spring and have some of the same issues they did last season. But I don't know. I mean, on my latest 53-man roster projection, I had him in there, but a lot of that probably is to do with the fact that he was a second-round pick. And if they bring in a guy like Brandon Flowers, who they reportedly had some conversations with, then it's going to be even more difficult for him to make the roster if they do choose to bring in a veteran cornerback.
Yeah, he kind of a lot of his struggles last year were kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. He struggled, then he lost confidence, which made him struggle exponentially more. Now the question is, does he have that confidence back? I mean, we haven't talked to him yet in training camp. We didn't speak with him today. We did talk to him once or twice during OTAs and minicamp. He seems like, he was saying all the right things. It seems like his head's in the right place. But if he comes out maybe in training camp or in the first preseason game, lets up a long touchdown, muffs a punt, something like that, will he be able to get his mind back right, look forward to the next play, or all those demons just going to come crawling back into him? I think that's the biggest thing for him right now. He just has to get his mind right.
All right, well, another guy with demons, Stephen Gronkowski. How important is it for him to come into this camp with sort of just turning a page, fresh start, and not letting those demons from last season and all the noise affect him?
It wound up okay at the end. I mean, they won the Super Bowl. I think he finished pretty strong as far as I remember, right?
He missed an extra point in the Super Bowl,
which
could have been bad. But he was very good on kickoffs throughout the playoffs. But yeah.
He doesn't have any competition, so I think that he should probably be fine in there. None of the specialists have competition. So I think that they're just going to roll with him again. But yeah, I think that he does certainly have to turn the page from last year because there were some serious moments where, obviously we talked about on this podcast, where it looked like it wasn't going to turn around. And then he did wind up turning around a little bit, like you said, just a field goal in the Super Bowl. But
second half of his season was much better overall. Yeah.
Are you surprised they didn't bring a guy in for camp just to kind of light a fire right now, maybe?
Not really, because, it wouldn't be real, I don't think. You're paying him so much. He's one of the best kickers in the NFL year after year. He obviously had his struggles last year, but what's the point in kind of faking and saying, ooh, here's this guy, this undrafted rookie out of Minnesota or whatever, to really push you for your job when that's not going to be the case. He's going to get the job. Yeah. So I'm not too surprised.
And I think the light of fire kind of acquisitions are much more useful and effective when it's a guy that you don't think is really putting in the work, when you think he's kind of complacent, kind of maybe slacking off. Nobody gets that sense from Stephen Gronkowski. It wasn't a lack of effort or a lack of dedication that was making him struggle last year. It was just he was in his head, his mechanics were messed up, something like that. But I don't think anybody on this team or around this team thinks that he's in need of a wake-up call. He just needs to kick better.
All right, well, another guy with something to prove during camp, Dwayne Allen, shaky OTAs and mini camp displays. What did you see from him so far today, and what do you expect?
No drops today, so that was good. I thought he looked fine out there. And, it's possible during these spring practices. We only see so many of them. Maybe we were only out here for his worst practices. Maybe the rest of the time he was hauling in every catch, and the rest of his teams would be like, why is everyone talking about you dropping balls so much? What are these guys talking about? So I think that that's a good thing about training camp is that we see every single play, we see every single practice, we're going to see every single throw going his way, and maybe it was just an odd occurrence that we were just seeing all the bad ones. So,
isn't that the way it always works? I was
think
on
so.
vacation last weekend at Lake Winnipesaukee, and my brother tossed me a football, and I caught it with one hand. But I have to brag about it because literally no one saw it.
Yeah, that's
I don't believe it actually happens.
I know. See, that's my point. So that's what Dwayne Allen's probably saying in the locker room.
That is definitely the good part about training camp. We get to remove those caveats of from what we've seen so far, he looks good. I mean, obviously, as media members, we haven't seen every practice. We get to get rid of all that nonsense. What we see is pretty much what we get, which is definitely a good tool in evaluating these guys.
All right, well, also on our list of players with the most to prove, may seem like a surprise, but Stephon Gilmore, and the reason, because with such a high price tag comes high expectations. So what do you think he needs to do during camp to live up to those expectations? Yeah,
I'll take, because I put Stephon Gilmore on this list for a different reason than some of these other players. These other players that we've mentioned so far are people who either struggled last year or struggled earlier this offseason. Stephon Gilmore hasn't had that problem. He was a Pro Bowler last year. But when you sign a player to a $65 million contract, especially if you're the Patriots and you don't do that ever, really, other than this. This was really kind of a rarity for this team. When you sign that large of a contract, he's going to be expected to be dominant from day one. He needs to be one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He needs to be basically him and Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler talked today about how him and Stephon Gilmore look like one of the best cornerback duos in the league. They need to be that, or else fans are not going to be happy if Stephon Gilmore comes out and gives kind of a middle of the road, okay, passable performance. I mean, when you get paid that much money, you need to come out and produce. And that's not saying that he won't. He's looked very good so far from what we've seen, especially he had a really good OTAs in minicamp. Looked solid today. I didn't see any miscues from him today. So not saying that he's not going to reach those expectations, but those expectations are definitely there.
They're high.
Here's another one that might seem surprising, but Gronk. What does he need to prove?
I will take him off this list now. I wrote this before we knew that he was fully healthy. I mean, he said himself during OTAs and minicamp that he was, I'm 100%, I'm good to go, yada yada. We were saying, okay, all right, let's just see it in action today. I mean, it wasn't full pads, but he was full go. He did not seem to have anything holding him back.
It only took one day for him to prove it, but
Real fire
that was what he needed to prove.
Yeah, true. We talked to Bill
today.
Belichick about this morning, and he said, he doesn't have any limitations. So if Belichick's willing to come out and say something like that, it's pretty clear that he does not have any limitations, and he's good to go, which I don't know if it's surprising or not. I mean, I'm not a medical expert, but having back surgery 5 months ago, it's a pretty quick recovery for him, which I'm sure the Patriots are happy about. I was, when he first got that surgery, I was expecting maybe we wouldn't see much of him this summer. Maybe they would hold him off until early in the right before the season. But yeah, he's back and he seems to be full speed.
Seems like it was a pretty quick recovery, and even at the time they were saying that it was like a 8 to 10 week recovery, something like that. So some people did predict that if they make this a rule, could he come back? That didn't wind up being the case. But yeah, so I mean, he was in WrestleMania. He's back now. He's been good for a while.
Belichick said he was full go before the offseason program even started. So he's been good for a while.
All right, well, let's dive into some roster battles and kick things off going back to cornerbacks. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore and Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler said that he does think that they are possibly the best cornerback tandem in the league.
He said they're already one of the best.
Yeah,
that they have the potential to be one.
He had a much more confident answer. Stephon Gilmore said that they need to prove it, and et cetera and so forth. But yeah, Butler, he seemed pretty confident. He knows that they're pretty good.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, they're the 1 and 2. That's for sure. It's number 3. I think is one thing that we're looking at as far as roster battles for cornerback go. And Eric Rowe is probably the 3rd best cornerback, but kind of depends on who fits into the slot more so than who's the more talented player. But I'm sure Rowe will get all the chances there. Jonathan Jones is getting some chances in the slot. Justin Coleman, Cyrus Jones, those guys are getting chances as well. But one guy I want to talk about is Kenny Moore, who's an undrafted rookie out of Valdosta State. He was one of the lowest ranked undrafted free agents the Patriots brought in. I think that a lot of people didn't really know a lot about him. But he was making a ton of plays during the spring, and he was making almost every play out there today. He caught an interception, and he had 4 pass breakups today in team drills. that's far more than any other cornerback out there on the field. And like I said, he was doing this during the spring too. So it's not like he had just had one lucky practice here. Maybe those practices in the spring were the lucky ones that we just got to see, and he was doing terrible when we weren't out there. But I think this kind of goes to show that he is for real. And even when he was out there during the spring, he was receiving some first-team reps. So I think that shows that the team really likes what they've seen from him as well. There's always that rookie undrafted cornerback that the Patriots have, whether it was Malcolm Butler or last year it was Jonathan Jones. Crevion LeBlanc was really good as an undrafted rookie. So I don't know. I mean, if this continues, then he'll be starting over Malcolm Butler. I don't think that's going to happen. But if this does continue, I think that he could crack the roster one way or the other because he's out there making plays, and he's kind of that prototypical slot guy because he's big enough to tackle guys, but he's also small and shifty and quick enough to cover those slot receivers. So, my hopes for Kenny Moore are probably a little bit too high at this point, but I've really liked what I've seen from him so far.
All right, I don't mean to skip around. We're going to get to linebackers, roster battles next, but one thing that I just realized I have in my notes that I completely forgot to mention, Rob Ninkovich was absent today, and that is pretty significant. Do you guys know?
Potentially significant.
Yeah.
Well, it's significant that he wasn't there.
True.
The reason, potentially significant. Do you guys have any indication as to where he was or why?
There's some speculation about retirement. Some people have kind of hinted about it. The weird thing is that he was absent, but he was on Pro Football Talk Live this morning, and he did a 98.5 to 98 mile rap battle or whatever. So I don't know. He's
been out doing all the Dr.
He's been
Leonard
doing
hair
right
things.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of been out there as far as I think this was his second time on PFT Live.
Would that
he's
indicate
been talking
retirement
to people.
to you? Maybe that he's taken more time to be doing the media stuff than.
Yeah. It's strange. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much because I really don't know. But it is strange that he wasn't out there when he has been doing these media appearances, and he didn't get hurt as far as we saw in the spring. They didn't put him on the PUP list, so I don't know.
Yeah, and it actually kind of showed today because Coney Ely was also absent, another defensive end. He left the final OTA practice early with what we assume was an injury. We don't actually know. We haven't heard either way. Missed the final minicamp practice, wasn't there today, also wasn't on the PUP list, so we don't really know what's going on with him. But I actually kind of realized today that the Patriots aren't really that deep at defensive end because Geno Grissom was running with the first unit for a lot of the day. He's a guy that many people don't even think will make the team. So really it goes to show that if Ninkovich does end up not being here, then it could that leaves a hole.
That would be a major area of need. If Rob Ninkovich for some reason isn't with the team this season, that's by far their biggest need, and that because that would mean Trey Flowers is the starter, and then hopefully you get Coney Ely back. He wasn't out there today, but I don't think you really want Coney Ely to be a starter because he was a little bit inconsistent with the Panthers. Beyond that, you're talking about Geno Grissom, who was cut out of training camp last year, Derek Rivers and Dietrich Wise, both of whom are rookies, and then even more rookies. You've got Caleb Kidder in there. And that might be it.
I think
because
that's
Corey
it,
Vereen is on injured. Corey Vereen is on injured reserve. So, they might have to look outside the organization at that point. And who was just cut by the Eagles? Marcus Smith.
Marcus Smith, first rounder.
Potentially a player, or maybe they want to move Shane McClellan down to defensive end. Kyle Van Noy could play some defensive end. So there are some options there, but that would definitely be a major need if for some reason he wasn't with the Patriots this season.
Well, speaking of those guys, the linebacker spot, you mentioned Van Noy. There's also Landon Roberts. What's that battle looking like to you?
Well, right now, since Dante Hightower's on PUP, the guys who are kind of running with that first team were Kyle Van Noy, Landon Roberts, and Shea McClellan. Once Hightower comes back, he would certainly be in that mix, or he would be a starter. And then David Harris probably will eventually go into that mix as well, but right now he's just trying to play catch-up because he wasn't here during the spring. So he's trying to learn the defense while potentially becoming, a potential starter. But I'm not ready to put all the eggs in the David Harris basket because we saw last year with Terrence Knight, and we've seen in the past with Adrian Wilson or Michael Jenkins, that sometimes these older veterans that the Patriots sign don't catch on and don't wind up sticking around. So if the Patriots do get something from David Harris, that's great, but I don't think they can depend on it. And I don't think they're in this situation to depend on it because they do have Kyle Van Noy, they do have Landon Roberts, they do have Shea McClellan.
So how confident are you guys in those three other players that we've mentioned, McClellan, Van Noy, and Roberts, because they were good, solid, showed flashes last season, but weren't entirely consistent.
It's one of their, I don't know if I would call it a weak unit, because Dante Hightower is one of the best in the NFL, and he elevates whoever he's playing with. But yeah, I mean, there's no clear-cut second starter in that group. Between Harris, I mean, I feel like Harris probably has the best chance, maybe, if he can replicate what he did for so many years in New York. Then you've got McClellan, Van Noy, and Roberts, who all showed flashes last year, were really good at times, but also were either bad or just kind of invisible at times. And then, I mean, going further down the list, you have a guy like Harvey Longy, who is a pretty highly touted undrafted free agent, but he's a rookie. We don't really know what we're going to get from him. So, yeah, it's definitely a bit of a mystery unit right now. I mean, outside of Dante Hightower, who's a known commodity, it's kind of hard to predict what that unit's going to look like come week one.
All right, well, turning to the other side of the ball, running backs, pretty loaded unit.
Very.
Dion Lewis, from what I saw of him, looked good out there today. What else did you guys notice?
Yeah, I mean, Dion Lewis looked good out there today. I think that it's obvious that James White's going to make the roster. Mike Gillisley, Rex Burkhead, those guys are going to make the roster. I guess Dion Lewis, just based on his contract situation, isn't as much of a lock as those other guys, but I'd probably also put him in that lock category. But then you've just got other names in there. You've got Brandon Bolden, who's been around forever as a special teams guy. I think that Rex Burkhead probably could replicate what he did on special teams, but maybe they want another special teams guy in there so he can make the roster. DJ Foster had a great spring. He was out there making catches again today, and he is someone that Ivan Fears, the Patriots running back coach, seems really excited about. So he's another potential guy who could make this roster. So it really just depends on how many players they are willing to keep around at that position, because there's a lot of guys who are worthy of roster spots on this team. And if a guy like DJ Foster, for instance, does get cut, they probably won't be able to keep him around on their practice squad, or maybe they would, but I think other teams would probably be interested in him at that point to sign him to their rosters.
Yeah, the fact that they kept him around on the active roster all last year while basically pretty much redshirting him, he barely played at all, I think shows that they weren't comfortable leaving him on the practice squad and allowing other teams to potentially pluck him off. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a clear four favorites, the ones you mentioned there in Gillisley, Burkhead, James White, Dion Lewis. They are kind of the chalk picks to make the roster. I think those four will end up making the roster. But DJ Foster, I mean, he's been making plays all spring. He had a good camp last year. If he has another good camp this year, it might be, I don't know, it might be tough for the Patriots to give up on him. That could be a situation where you see the ripple effect elsewhere in the lineup. Maybe they keep one fewer receiver or linebacker or offensive lineman or something, cornerback, to maybe squeeze him in there and see what he can do, especially if he can contribute on special teams. So,
all right, so another loaded spot, obviously, the receiving core. Tom Brady's just take your pick to who he wants to throw to this year. So who really stood out to you today, day one of training camp?
As far as receivers go, that's a good question.
How did Brandon Cooks look out there?
He looks good. Julian Edelman looked good.
Anyone surprise you then?
With Brandon Cooks, it's almost he looks so natural out there that you don't really even notice him while he's playing. He had a 45, 50-yard touchdown from Tom Brady, and it seemed kind of like, oh yeah, look, there goes burning two guys down the sideline.
About him, just like on and off the field, just everything he does, he just seems very...
It's a confidence,
he has a legitimate, not like a cockiness, he just seems so comfortable.
Yeah, I think he's good, and he's very confident in the fact that he's good. But if we're going surprises, maybe, Austin Carr had a pretty good day today. He made what was probably the catch of the day. I caught a video of it on my Twitter, shameless plug, at Zach Cox Nesson. With a K.
We're all about shameless plugs on this podcast.
But the rest of the day he did have one drop, but he had some catches throughout the rest of the day. He had a pretty good OTAs and minicamp. It's going to be very hard for him to make the roster, even though the path got, I guess, a little bit clear with Andrew Hawkins no longer on the team. He retired the other day. But there's really, I think, still a sizable gap between maybe the top five there with Cooks, Edelman, Chris Hogan, Malcolm Mitchell, Danny Amendola. Pretty big gap still between the bottom feeders there in Austin Carr, Devin Lucien, and Cody Hollister. But Lucien made a couple good catches too. So this is a very, very deep receiving core, even beyond the people that that probably will make this team.
Is Carr the guy you really liked in the spring, or was it Hollister?
It was Carr. Yeah, Carr.
I thought so.
Carr was good in the spring. He's looking good out there again today. So, yeah, I mean, he's a classic practice squad fit, I think, because I don't think that he was really that highly sought after as an undrafted free agent either. Pretty highly sought after, but not quite as much as a guy like Harvey Longy or Jacob Hollister. So I think that he certainly could crack the practice squad and make it down to the practice squad after clearing waivers. But we'll see how he does this summer.
Any closing thoughts, observations that we didn't talk about from day one that you want to touch on?
I don't think so. As far as Malcolm Mitchell goes, he didn't practice during the spring. He was back out there today. I thought he looked a little bit rusty at times, but I think that he'll catch back on. He was really good last summer.
It's probably just the tattoo on his calf.
Exactly.
I was just going to mention
that.
Settle
in.
He has a massive.
Probably his leg weighs more now.
It's basically like here to here. It's a massive Lombardi tattoo. I mean, it's a cocky move. I like it.
We were talking about it too before we got rolling, and during the media scrum today, he was asked about it, and I said it's huge. I was like, you didn't really leave much room for another, and he was like, that's a good point. And Jonah, you said it's a classic actual rookie move. Actual rookie move.
His whole body's just going to be covered with Lombardi trophies if he sits around long enough.
Hey, he can just do different limbs. He'll do the other leg, and then he'll do his arms, and then
torso.
Yeah, torso. I mean, how many Super Bowls is he going to win?
Tom Brady has 5. Blitz for 6. The last thing is, I don't know what's been going on behind us here. Weird weather for training camp. It's usually sweltering hot down here. Today it's nice, cool.
It's football
cool,
weather.
It's windy. It is. It's football weather. It feels like fall. And in a way, I know that can sometimes be not such a great thing. I know a lot of coaches really like heat during training camp because it's really, separates the men from the boys.
Don't ask Bill Belichick about it, though.
The week, but
every day like this, he'll get it. Every time the weather is slightly off from the norm, he gets a question about the weather. And so those are some of the best Bill Belichick answers ever. It is what it is.
Second only to...
if it's rain, it's rain. If it's snow, we'll play in the snow. If it's hot, that's what it is. Sometimes we'll play in the hot, sometimes it's cold. I mean...
Look at this impression, too. You're getting the eyes into it.
I'm working on it. Kevin Duffy from Mass Live still does the best Belichick impression, but I'm working on mine.
Weather questions, second only to social media questions. Today, hashtag instant face is what Bill Belichick brought out. Couldn't even get the Insta right.
I'm going to come with a hot take that Bill Belichick has to retire the Insta-face joke.
I still think it's really
It's been going on for so long.
Marc and I, our producer, we hit each other during this conversation.
As someone who has to...
hit with Marc and Michaela.
It's funny. What, you guys don't like it?
He needs to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
I like the sentiment, but he's got to find some new material.
But you're not good. That's the point. You get material from him. That's why it's funny.
Well, I need different material. You can only laugh at instant face and snap face so much.
I want instant face to be trending by the end of today. So
it might be.
I'm
honestly,
just going to tweet it at you guys once a day for the entire football season.
I think he's a funny guy. I think he could come up with some original material.
All right.
Maybe Burge can help him with that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
This has been great, though. It's great to be back. We get a long football season ahead of us.
We're going to be live all season too, so that's the plan at least.
Yeah, we really upgraded stuff since last season, so we are really happy about that. So tune in next time and make sure to keep it on NESN.com for all your coverage from Patriots training camp.